Boom. We are alive, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today. This is Tiho and the Arcane Bear. We're going to start by taking a look at Bitcoin, and then we're going to go over the rest of the market, leading with some of our favorite alternative digital assets in this ever-evolving space. I think it's really important to, I guess, just keep kind of a constant eye on things, not because staying that focused on the market is important, but the more habitually you practice anything, the better you get at it. And that's really our long-term goal here, is to get better at everything that we're doing. So let's start with Bitcoin on the daily and then lead from there. So for those of you that are new here, welcome to the Arcane Bear family. We love studying the Wyckoff trading ranges. We've been doing it for almost 2 years now. One of the fun things is that to get to this point, the spring itself, the blood in the streets moment, at least this time around, was the pandemic started our bull market. And if you happen to be in the bear den anywhere between March and August, September of 2020, you got to enjoy one heck of a ride into the beginning of the bull market, knowing full well that it was just about to take place. Now, in this intermediary moment, there's a fairly easily balanced risk to reward relationship. Like, right, we could go up to 120,000, we can go up to say 90 or down to 19,000. Now, neither of those are technically important. Over the long term, what if we said Bitcoin was going to millions of dollars? For kind of a fun side statement, the other day when we were tweeting, we tweeted one of our very first YouTube videos, which was from March 3rd, 2017, when Bitcoin was at $1,000, and I titled that video, "Bitcoin is going to $6 million. Here's why." I actually still stand by that assertion. Now, in that video, I talk about hyperinflation, these unquenchable thirst for quantitative easing, which is, again, to some degree or another, money printing or debt creation, effectively. So when we're watching the growth of Bitcoin, we're watching actually a few different really important factors. The monetary cycle as a whole is going through kind of let's call it a rebasing. And this comes from a few different areas. So we're actually doing extraordinarily well from where we started in the beginning of this bull market with all of the bear family. Now, if you're new here and you're just new to investing, well, congratulations, you found something called Bitcoin, and that is a great long-term investment. Now, how do you do that? You show up every month, you make investments without really thinking about what the price is at, and over the long term, this is a very simple path that yields extraordinary results. You can be a normal person and achieve extraordinary results by doing these simple things. And this is kind of the same with any level of mastery. It's about a habitual repetition and that ability to show up all the time. So right now, being in the midst of the bull market, what we end up doing is getting kind of focused in on the macro. So here's Bitcoin on the 4-hour, and here's a smaller trading range that we've been using to study. Now, these smaller trading ranges are much less reliable than the big ones that we used to have gotten here in the first place. But the study and the habitual kind of association of mastery, because it does not come quick, takes time. So what do? We show up, we take a look. Well, what are we witnessing right now? Well, we're seeing some fairly nice strength off the top of our falling wedge. Now, this is a really important area. Again, we have seen the last parts of wedges jet down, but if we go back to our macro perspective, we remember how we got here. We take note of how long we've been here, right? So you'll have to bear with me. But when I posted that video back in 2017, this is where Bitcoin's price was. This is it right here. This $1,000 mark, effectively. I think it was $1,077, and there is a reason for that. It was the breakout of this trading range, and at that moment, it looked like a beautiful cup and handle to me. So I was like, great. Here's a multi-year accumulation channel that's known as a cup and handle. And over the course of the last few years, I've gotten well. Let's not say I've done anything. There's a thesis that has arrived on my table, distilled through time because of form and practice. Now, everyone can theorize all they want about whether trading ranges or all this stuff, but effectively, we have hundreds of years of data of markets, and some of the ways to really win this game are really investments through time, ignoring any type of inflation or monetary control or government. It's just keep investing in valuable businesses that do positive things for other people. It's like a great sentiment to follow. And that's really what we're trying to do here with Bitcoin as well. So whether we go up or down is almost unimportant to me at this moment. We got the first part right, which was my biggest concern. Again, be in the market when the market starts. Now, if you're new here, your goal should be to average in. So if let's say you bought back the top in 2017, I just want to keep repeating this mantra so everybody knows it. You just keep accumulating. And literally anytime, if you're just like on the 11th of every month, what you end up getting was a 2-year price that usually would come somewhere right between the middle of the trading range. So you'd have averaged around $6,000 per Bitcoin if you just bought every month. Effectively, that would be like the rounded out math. And you can see that quite easily, I think, if you do your homework. So what's the point of this? Let's say you just bought at the top and this is the end of the bull market. This, I'm not saying that it is, but let's say that it is for hypothetical reasons as we chase and steel man this argument for fun. So the bull market's over, you bought at the top. Well, the next best thing to do is just to continually accumulate. So let's say you come down to 20,000 and what you end up doing is rounding out your price and you get a much better long-term acquisition profile for the assets that you're interested in. And this always works. From Warren Buffett to Charlie Munger, some of the world's best investors, well, first off, are probably dead if they haven't touched their portfolio, but they did the same things. They kept repeating a habitual mastery-like process of accumulating. Now, the next thing I think that's important to go over to is the fun world of venture capital, things like Ethereum. What really ties our thesis together is when we look at assets within this field that have asymmetric upside and limited downside, right? You take the long-term picture, although I do not have it drawn up on Ethereum on this one right now. We can use this anyways. Here, where I'm arbitrarily drawing that white line, was the beginning of the pandemic. It represented the very start of the bull market. These are almost always the key indicators that you want to be watching for at the start of a bull market is what Baron Rothschild's called blood in the streets. That was a literal connotation from 2001 when terrorists attacked buildings and people were dying, or the financial collapse of 2008 when people were kicked out of their homes and maybe possibly some died on the streets. This moment of fear in human society creates an extraordinarily irrational price point, usually to the downside, well, actually always to the downside so far, and that represents the best time to get any asset that you had wanted in the months or years leading up to that moment. So from every day after the pandemic, you could have consistently accumulated once a month. And let's say you're even only buying, we'll say $1,000 a month of Ethereum. Over here, you managed to accumulate, let's see, like 4, 6, 12, 20, around 32 Ethereum for probably $7,000 or something like that. So there's a huge amount of potential in the days leading up to this. Everyone's always worried about an exit. My most functional part of this thesis is about the entry. It's all about the beginning of pandemics. It's all about the beginning of financial collapses. It's all about the beginning of terrorist attacks. Now, hopefully YouTube doesn't censor me for that, but the important part here is to understand that the psychological human emotion involved in these sequence of events is really what creates everything. So now here we are well along our way into this moment of fear and into some areas of euphoria. Hell, I even looked at a fucking Maserati Levant the other day because I was bored. What kind of ridiculousness is that? I don't do shit like that. But this is what happens when irrational exuberance, hey, and the lights come back on. It's good we were out of power for a minute. That's good to see. Ping. So the point that I wanted to make here is that in the venture capital space, we know that we only had a limited room for downside. Ethereum could have only gone to zero, right? Ethereum could have gone to zero. That could have happened, although I'm not betting on that. When we were buying it at $200, $300, making videos about it every day, it could have only gone to zero. So if you were always limiting your downside by what you invest, you will always win that game, because at one point, if you feel that you are not interested in it to continue to make an investment, then you don't anymore, and you stop and you invest in other things. So as we move on and what happened with Avalanche? Well, Avalanche was one of these fantastically interesting areas where we as venture capitalists are specifically looking for technological advancements way before everybody else, before there's ever a stock, or sometimes before there's ever a token or anyone even knows what these are called. So back in August, way before there was a chart that's even listed here, Avalanche had their private sale. Now, for United States citizens, you would have had a little more difficulty getting in, but nonetheless, it was at 30 cents, and then around 50 cents for public, and then when it officially hit the markets, I believe we were between $1 to $3. So there's actually some of this market where it first went down. We're not seeing here because I'm charting the perpetual futures on Binance. That would be why. But nonetheless, let's say you came even late. Avalanche was this huge potential. You could have been buying, let's say, $1,000 a month of Avalanche at $3 an Avalanche and ended up with like 1,000 plus Avalanche over the course of a few months, right? So then what happened? Well, if you were patient, asymmetry plays into your favor, right? Here's the asymmetry that came from the $3 move to begin with. This is, one of the important parts to note here is timing. So you made your entries right, and you were able to yield an 1,800% gain. So for every $1,000 you put in, you're walking away with $18,000. Did I get that right? Yeah, I believe that's right. So, whoa, that's a hugely positive upside for a very limited risk downside. This is the exact part of the thesis that is so difficult to understand, is because most people want to jump in and just go, oh my God, I'm going to invest everything all at once because I want to make $1 million, boom. And they invest, the price goes down. They forget the value of why they invested in that thing. Maybe the market shifts, the sentiment shifts. Maybe it wasn't even a valuable thing to invest in the first place. And now they sell, they walk away, they lose, they technically lost money. They don't get back in. And maybe they were actually even right. And a year and a half later, Avalanche is up at like $680. From the $3 that purchased that. Now it went to a high of $60. I actually was quite convinced now that we were going to see a bigger uptick here, especially after I thought this was our spring of a horizontal trading range after reaccumulation, after decline. We did watch this falling pennant here into the last part of the market, and because Bitcoin was going weak, it just happened to be the case that we saw this pennant totally break down and basically fall us right to some of our early tweets or more public tweets of like, yes, Avalanche is doing great so far. So what does that mean overall? Well, we're in the world of venture capital. You're early. Congratulations. You have landed at one of the world's greatest opportunities in the 21st century. I believe that's where we are. You should congratulate yourself on recognizing the value before most other people do. The DeFi sector, game-changing. Bitcoin, game-changing. Technology here changes the game, right? So when we're going through, we're like, great, look, here's Solana at $40. Well, I remember when Ethereum was $40, when it launched back in 2017, or when we were making YouTube videos in 2017. It was actually launched quite a bit cheaper than that in the ICO. I did not get close to that one. I was still learning what the ICO was, but at least I had Bitcoin. I had enough of it figured out to still do well. But nonetheless, now that I recognize this, I go hunting. I go searching for it. Where's the next Solana? What's the next Avalanche? Why is 1inch valuable? What's the long-term potential, right? So as we start to break into this scenario, we have such limited data. Even the DeFi sector itself really started to get traction and to be well understood. Let's say May of 2020, April, June, like the automated market makers, Sushi Swap, I guess we should rightfully say the swap that came first. I don't even remember the name. Something Swap. Uniswap, that's the one. Something Swap. They could all be a something swap for all I care. And they might be in the future. You might see a company that takes all these open source pieces and shoves them all together and builds something even better, and then goes down that line. So what do we try to do here? Well, we just try to stay a little bit updated with what these companies are doing. So be sure to follow us on Twitter. Now, there's a lot of news articles that we go over and content that we go over that doesn't usually make it to the YouTube channel because I like kind of riffing and ranting on my own philosophical discourse. And where we land throughout that discourse will widely vary depending on what it is I'm talking about. So be sure to follow us on Twitter. And just again, a quick update. Check out this Data Dash highlight about benchmark protocol. Shout out to Nicholas Merton, big friends, big fams, long-term support. That's what you need here in this community, is people that continue to keep showing up. Data Dash, Nick made videos every day in 2018 and 2019. And there's something valuable to be said about that, like complete reverence to accountability, regardless of what the market was doing. The market was basically boring in 2018 and 2019, but that was the time it was actually the most exciting. Okay, let's see what else do we have in the charts today. Oh yes, 1inch now started their new their wallet. So if you download their wallet, grab a screenshot, and you can win up to $5,000 in there as well. And Mercurial goes live on the beta testnet. So one of the things we wanted to start doing was, we've been growing our portfolio, our research arm, and that's very exciting for us. So it's going to continue to grow. Again, a lot of this actually ends up on arcanebear.com. So there's a lot of things that we're interested in, both research and investment wise. Now, not all of the things that you see on the screen I'm about to show you are actually we are invested in, but just for fun, if you're interested to learn more about Dodo, which we're not invested in, our research falls on this page as well. And wait, what? There's no research here. Psh, Daniel, fix that. I'm sure Daniel's going to watch that later and go, whoops, we missed one. Okay, let's go Solana. I'm pretty positive we have research on Solana because this is one we do have in our portfolio. No. Okay, so we got to catch up here. I actually thought we had finished all those. But here, even stronger in our portfolio near the top, and it's kind of ranked based in order, so keep that in mind at the moment. There we go. One of the tokens we have been invested in for quite some time is Avalanche. So again, what's the point of these last bits of information? As we grow, the fundamentals of everything changes. We're constantly growing. What about energy? And yes, we have energy and our research done there. So we are continually updating our research into the things that we find interesting and the repetitive pattern of companies that grow throughout time. Energy is another great example of a community-driven project. They've created, they've reiterated a version of Uniswap. You can now use Energy, which is way cheaper than Uniswap. So what I like about this is this constant rebuilding of open source technologies. So go to arcanebear.com, sign up. We now offer a free newsletter, which is probably going to go alongside some of this stuff. In our paid group as well, if you are brave and like to try new things, go ahead and sign up for our private group, arcanebear.com/private. What did I want to finish on? There was one more thing on Twitter, wasn't there? Trying to be a little bit more like centered and have each of these ideas built out for you. Where was it? Oh, yes. Well, do yoga. This is actually probably a good one too. Do yoga, guys, or meditate at least once a week. This by Crypto RS. I like this share. $22 billion. Now, $22 billion is not a lot of money. I know, well, it's an extraordinarily high amount of money for any particular individual, but in terms of like group collaboration, it's not all that high. I have a friend who started a company in the 1970s who did $9 billion a year from water and almonds. So you have to remember that $9 billion a year, that's only 2-year revenue from these motherfuckers. Like, it's not a lot of money in the big boy space, right? Okay, just be clear that I do not have $1 billion. I'm sorry. If I did, I'd be giving it away more often, I'm sure. But that's a completely different conversation. The point here is that we're actually seeing a lot of institutional interest, and some of the things that we're witnessing right now, I wanted to give, final kind of a shout out here to Baird and Jerry. I thought that this was a really nice take on Ethereum. So anytime someone in the private den comes up with a Wyckoff chart analysis that I really like, we're actually going to take and share this on Twitter. So be sure to give our tweet some love. I really like this potential of reaccumulation after decline. For those of you that are well along your way into your Wyckoff studies, you will recognize this. Big hats to Jer Bear on that one. Let's see, am I already logged in? Yes, let's go back and take a look in our Wyckoff trading ranges, what exactly Jer Bear is talking about. This is a reaccumulation potential where you have a really big kind of peak out top, drops back down, forms a new horizontal trading range, and then breaks out. Now, again, what we always want to be very cautious and aware of is that in the midway of the bull market, because again, this is not the beginning of the pandemic, these, as much as you want to follow the jump across the creek, you want to follow the break below the ice as well. So when you're following and you go more into a bearish sentiment, it's called breaking the ice. When you break above it, it's called jumping the creek. One of the kind of easy ways to do this is to drop a fairly standard Bollinger Band, although this is not a standard one, it will look fairly similar. And as you can see, Ethereum is actually starting to peak out back above its Bollinger Band on the 6 hour, and on the daily here, it's actually showing some strength as well. So that's quite nice to see. This would give us more credence to, again, believe that this is another reaccumulation channel. We talked about this many times. The likelihood being an reaccumulation, even though there's room for downside, which you should always be aware of. Anyone who's not aware of that is lying to themselves. And there's strategy to make up for that. But nonetheless, it does look like we've got a nice bounce at the top of our wedge so far. And if Ethereum is able to hold this break here above the top of this Bollinger Band right now, and more importantly, get above the POC at 2,500, Jer Bear, I think you're right, that this looks like a nice reaccumulation after decline. Or again, here's our nice schematic from Arcane Bear. Anyways, thank you guys all for joining us. Have a lot of fun with these things. Give us a thumbs up if you like this content. If you're new to the Bear family, go to any of the links down below. Subscribe to the channel. Notify yourselves by clicking the little bell. Every time we go live or something, you get a little ding and it'll go bing. Hey, guess what? Tio is going to rant I'm very grateful for the space to have these monetary meditations, even though it's not Monday. Oh, hey, and finally, just for all of you who are deciding to stick around, let's just do a last little quick take. VIX looks good, following this downward channel still so far. If we start to get a ton of volatility in the markets, I could maybe ponder a guess as to where that might come from, but I'm not going to right now because I'd probably get kicked off Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or YouTube. Probably all of them, actually. I'm not sure, but Dwizzabin or something like this. Okay, next thing, ICX. Whew. Okay, so we were a little, again, this is one of the kind of leading areas we wanted to keep an eye on. I have my market melt-up theory, but when you see a new trading range start to form in any way, you want to keep an eye on the finality of the trading range, especially because this could become an upthrust, and we could see a distributional moment in the NASDAQ, which would not bode well. But again, remember that phase C in any reaccumulation channel can actually become bullish. It's extraordinarily important to understand the difference between a reaccumulation range and an accumulation range and the way they function and vary, especially on the time frames. Anyways, the S&P 500 also putting in new highs, but we do see diminishing volume on this here as well. So it's going to be really interesting to see what the downside potential of this phase C that we've entered into for the S&P 500 as well. I think this will be a lead indicator, but just as a rough guess, I'll lead with where my intuition was to begin with. We're about halfway through the bull market. We're going to get another maybe even month of sideways consolidation here, which we can see growing on this channel before we get any real big firework confirmations or disconfirmations, lack of confirmation. And then here on Ethereum actually as well, this could be, especially if we stay above this Bollinger Band right now, that's a nice sign. So thanks to all the Bear family. I always have a great time with you guys. We'll see you again on the next episode. Oh, wait, hold on. I see you guys are asking for flute, right? Okay, just because I love music so much. And we're going to start making vlogs. I swear to God, like one of these days we'll start making a vlog again. I promise. I'm not lying to you. I have my camera. Ready. Like I'm geared up to go. So keep that in mind. We'll leave you guys off a little bit of flute because there's many of you asking that. And yeah, well, just let's see here. Okay, thank you guys all for joining the Eclectic Bear and for supporting and appreciating, all things not charts and all things not purely financially related. I love that we can zone out into some native Navajo flute by my favorite flute maker, High Spirits. So if you're ever interested in learning how to play, High Spirits makes the best flutes. This has not been a sponsored piece of content, but I love this company. Anyways, we'll see you guys again in the next episode. Thank you for calling me back there. I kept seeing flute in the chat, so we'll give the Bear fams what they want, and we'll see you guys again.